Hello, I'm Dr. Harold Koenig, and I'm going to speak to you about religion, health, and the COVID-19 pandemic that is sweeping the United States and many countries around the world, including Brazil and Saudi Arabia and many countries of Europe and really all over the world. And it's causing a great deal of anxiety and stress for all of us. And so I'm going to talk about the role that religious faith plays in helping to deal with some of this stress. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll proceed. Okay, so we're going to start now, and here we go. So in overview, I'm going to talk a little bit about introducing the subject, review the effects of anxiety on the immune system, look at how religious faith and mental health are connected, and the connection between faith and physical health, talk about religion and susceptibility to infection, make some recommendations, provide some conclusions, and then provide you with some further resources. First of all, many people are anxious now over the coronavirus. There is indeed much to be anxious about, given the health consequences of becoming infected. But more than the more anxious we are, the more likely we're going to become vulnerable to the infection. And the reason is because of the effects of anxiety and stress and worry on the immune system, especially chronic stress like we're under now. The immune system is the primary way that the physical body protects itself from infection, particularly viral infection. So this worry and this stress, we have to deal with it. Now, religious faith is often used to cope with stressors in life. Many people turn to their faith for comfort, and right now we need a lot of comfort. Religious faith has the potential to help with whatever situation a person is facing, including the risk of infection, and if one becomes infected, dealing with the infection itself. So even if you become infected, religion can play a role in how you cope with that and help to control how anxious or depressed one is. This has been true for thousands of years and through many, many pandemics. Religion has played a central role in helping people deal with these widespread infections. Reading religious scriptures can often bring peace and may help to reduce fear and anxiety. Now, my favorite scripture for a time like this is Psalm 91. The words are so powerful, and they address issues related to pandemics in 3 different places. So I'm going to read it now for you. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. If you make the Most High your dwelling, even the Lord, who is my refuge, then no harm will befall you. No disaster will come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent. Because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. So I don't know what more to say here. This pretty much says it all in terms of the role that religious faith can play in helping us to cope with the stress of this COVID-19 pandemic. Does religious coping really help? Does depending on one's faith make a difference? What's the scientific evidence in this regard? So a lot of what I'm going to say has been reviewed in several different articles and books. The Handbook of Religion and Health, published in 2001, 2012, the second edition, and the third edition is coming out in 2021, really reviews this research, looking in great detail at the studies, making this a connection between religion and a person's faith and their health. Religion and Mental Health, Research and Clinical Applications. This is a book that came out last year. It's really the most recent kind of overview of this whole topic of religion and mental health that is currently out there prior to publication of the third edition of the handbook, which may come out as late as early 2022. There's also an article that you can get on Google that we've recently published in the British Journal of Psychiatry Advances, and this slide provides a link to that article. Let's talk about the role that religion plays in depression. And many people are getting depressed because we're having to stay inside all the time. We're not connected with our loved ones as we've been in the past. This is especially true for people in long-term care facilities who can't even leave their rooms. And this is getting old after 9 months, 6 to 9 months of this pandemic, and people are getting depressed over it. But religious faith has been shown to be associated with less depression, with faster recovery from depression, and religious interventions for depression have been shown to be effective, with large effect sizes in terms of reducing depressive symptoms that are related to chronic health problems and other issues related to health. Here's a study that is a pretty powerful study. It provides objective evidence that religious faith makes a difference in terms of depression. This article was published in what used to be called the Archives of General Psychiatry, and this is probably one of the most prestigious of all of the biological psychiatry journals in the world. And what this study did was it examined the structure of the brain using magnetic resonance imaging in order to see what difference religion or spirituality made in terms of the brain structure of individuals at high risk for depression. So here are the findings. If you look on the left-hand panel, here are the brains of individuals for whom religion is not very important. You can see all of the red areas, which indicate reduced cortical thickness. On the right-hand side are the brains of individuals for whom religion is very important. Now, all of these individuals are at high risk for depression because their parents had a major depression. So they're at high risk to have inherited this genetic risk. But for those for whom religion is very important, you see a lot fewer areas of reduced cortical thickness. So although this study doesn't prove that religious involvement actually can expand out areas of the brain that may be genetically predisposed to be shrunk because of that family history of depression, doesn't prove that, but it is consistent with that idea. So here is some real objective evidence that seems to indicate that religious involvement can make a difference for those, particularly those at high risk for depression, even in terms of the structure of their brain. Now, religious involvement is also associated with less alcohol use, abuse, and dependence. And right now, people at home, you know, they're doing a lot of drinking to help cope with the stress, with the depression, with just the boredom, you know, of not being able to get out and socialize. And many people have lost their jobs, and all of this is creating a great deal of stress that is causing people to do things to reduce that stress. Now, religious involvement is related to less use of alcohol, less dependence on alcohol, and what it does is it provides an alternative way of coping with stress that helps to lower the stress and give a person a sense of peace and a sense of control. So it's an alternative to alcohol and drug use. Well-being and happiness, you know, that seems to be in short supply now during the pandemic. Well, religious involvement is related to greater well-being and greater happiness in the vast majority of studies, in nearly 80% of the, and now this is a systematic review. These are not just studies that have been cherry-picked in order to prove a point. This is all of the literature out there that's been published in the English language that is reported in the second edition of the Handbook of Religion and Health by Oxford University Press that I mentioned earlier. So greater well-being in terms of happiness, life satisfaction, sense of purpose and meaning in life, hope, optimism, they're all more common among people who are more religious. And we really do need some hope and optimism now in order to reduce our anxiety and help to boost our immune function so that it helps to protect us against this virus. Now, in terms of physical health, first of all, we'll talk a little bit about health behaviors. Now, health behaviors are critical for protection from coronavirus infection and for recovery from it if someone gets infected. So health behaviors are huge. Religious involvement is related to more exercise, more physical activity in the majority of studies. And really, exercise is what everybody is recommending. You know, it's very tempting to just sit on the couch now and watch TV or do things that don't involve much physical activity, particularly if you're at home. But it's critical that you get out there. And religious faith can help you do that, can help you develop a regular regimen of exercise, which is so important in terms of maintaining the body systems that are critical for protecting our health. Healthier diet. Religious people eat a healthier diet. They have more self-control in terms of what they eat. There is less cigarette smoking in 90% of studies. We know that smoking cigarettes will increase your risk of infection by the virus and the development of COVID-19. There's no question about that. Also, religious involvement is related to weight. Unfortunately, it's related in the opposite direction that we would hope it would be. People at greater risk for the coronavirus tend to be heavier. So being overweight or obese increases your risk of being infected by the virus. Religious people tend to, although they tend to eat a better diet, they eat more of it than probably, you know, on average is good for a person. And so attention has to be paid to limiting one's food intake and controlling one's weight so as to try to get down to an ideal body weight, which will help to protect you against this virus. Immune function. As I said earlier, immune functions are critical to our ability to, withstand this virus. And religious involvement is related to better immune function in the majority of studies that have looked at this. And it makes sense why religion would be. If religion helps people to cope better and reduces anxiety, depression, and stress, then we know that depression and anxiety and stress worsen immune function. So if you have less of that, your immune functions are going to be better. And that's exactly what the majority of studies show. We did one of the first studies showing that frequency of attendance at religious services is related to lower levels of inflammation in the body and a stronger immune system that reflects. I'll talk a little bit more about attending religious services because I know that many people are, unsure about that during these times. So this study showing better immune functioning among those who attend services more often has been replicated by another research group that has no connection with our researchers. And so, what's key here is that, you've got more than one group reporting a finding. And they were even able to connect, frequent church attendance with lower levels of inflammation that predicted greater longevity in this particular sample. Here are some other studies on immune function. Studies in older adults and levels of again, interleukin-6 and interleukin-10. The plasma IL-10/IL-6 ratio is an indicator of inflammation in the body and is an indicator of how healthy the immune system is. There have been several studies looking at immune function in individuals who have impaired immune function, such as those who have AIDS or who are infected by the HIV virus. And those studies show that religious people have better immune function and are able to actually control the virus better, have lower levels of viral load. Several of these studies that I've cited here have reported that. So, even one's view of God is benevolent and forgiving as opposed to punishing and condemning makes a difference in terms of immune function among those who are infected by viruses. Also, religious involvement is related to how susceptible people are susceptible to getting infected by viruses. Here's a study that the first one here looks at infection of the area around the teeth, and that religious involvement is even related to less infection around people's teeth, periodontitis. Also, it seems to help to protect from meningococcal disease in adolescents. That's caused by a bacterial infection, but again, infection by bacteria, virus, or any pathogen seems to be less among those who are more religious. And here are some other studies also looking at various groups of participants with various illnesses. So what about religious gatherings? On the one hand, on-site religious gatherings are going to increase the risk of virus spread. Religious gatherings involve close contact fellowship, oftentimes shaking hands, standing close, hugging, laughing, close sitting and standing, loud praying and singing, all increasing virus transmission. Religious rituals involve physical contact, depending on what your religious faith tradition is. There's the Eucharistic ritual, particularly in Catholics. In Greek Orthodox Christianity, there's kissing of icons, kissing of the priest's hand. All of these rituals increase risk of infection. Masks may or may not be worn, and they may or may not be worn during the actual service. So all of this increases risk of infection. Now, churches have gotten around this in various ways. They have made it so that everyone has to wear a mask, that they've arranged the seating so that people are 6 feet apart. And, they have encouraged people in both entering and leaving the church to keep that social distancing. And I think that's good. And in fact, me and my wife have started to attend church again on site. I'm very conservative in this regard, but it seems like our church has worked it out so that we're pretty safe in there. And they have, places where you can sanitize your hands and all of those things. So it can be worked out. And we know that religious attendance in particular is such a powerful factor in predicting health and health outcomes, and in protecting us really from social isolation, which itself is a predictor of worse immune functioning when you're socially isolated. Now, on the other hand, religious involvement has many benefits to health, and it not only the aspects of the religious beliefs being reinforced by the sermons and by the prayers, but also the socializing is important. But you have to be careful with it these days. So are religious persons more compliant with CDC recommendations? Here in the United States, no, they're not. In fact, they are more likely to not follow the CDC recommendations. So here's a study that has actually documented this finding. There and several other studies have documented it as well. More religious people are more likely to gather together. They're less likely to engage in these safe social distancing. I don't know. It's a factor that is concerning. And that has the potential to increase the risk of the spread. And then, even if young people are doing this, they come home, they pass it on to their parents, and then their grandparents, and then the grandparents are the ones that end up with the virus and end up with infection. So it's crucial to abide by these recommendations. So risk of infection. So we would expect a lower rate of infection if religious people are wearing masks and not gathering. But only one study has examined this thus far. There's actually been 2 studies now. We don't know whether or not religion makes a difference in terms of the death rate or medical complications among those who are infected. We don't know that yet. We do know that in one study, of Israeli Jews, 67% of whom were secular or non-religious, that Israeli Jews have 5 times the infection rate of Israeli Arabs, 87% of whom are Muslim and religious. This was a large study. So it would suggest that for some reason, we're really not sure about this, why Israeli Jews are more likely to get infected than are Israeli Arabs. Now, Israeli Arabs may be more compliant with the fatwa that has been declared that says that, you ought to not gather together for prayer. You're supposed to do it in your home, and you don't have to go to the mosque to do it. And there has also been, a lot of restrictions even on the pilgrimages in Islam. So whether or not, Muslims are gathering together less frequent and therefore lower risk of infection, or maybe because what they're wearing is making a difference. We don't know, but research needs to be done. In Ghana, a study showed that Muslims had a greater risk perception than did Christians. So, if you perceive that you are at risk, you're more likely to do things to protect yourself. And that seems to be more common among Muslims than among Jews or Christians. So here's one study of American Orthodox Jews that found that personal infection was associated with higher intrinsic religiosity and higher trust in God. So, this is kind of the opposite of what we would have expected, but the fact is that many Orthodox Jews do gather together, particularly in the area of the world where this study was conducted, and may or may not have been practicing, wearing masks and practicing social distancing. So that may very well be why infection rates are higher. Now, what we don't know whether or not the outcome of the infection was worse or was better, based on their religiosity. We don't know that yet because studies have not been done to look at the actual outcome of infection and the role that religion plays in that. Now, what are some recommendations for COVID for this pandemic? First of all, develop your personal religious faith. It can make a difference. Psalm 91. I would meditate on Psalm 91 because I think it can make a difference. Even though there's no research out there showing it, it makes sense based on the existing research on the role that religion plays in health and on reducing anxiety and decreasing worry. Number 2, care for the emotional and physical needs of your neighbor. We know that Moses and Jesus, what they said regarding, the commandments, love your neighbor as yourself. And in fact, the Muslim hadith, which is the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, said God has no mercy for one who has no mercy for the people. In fact, the Prophet said that the angel Gabriel was so insistent on emphasizing the good treatment of neighbor that Muhammad thought that the neighbor might become a legal inheritor. Likewise, when a man came to the Prophet and asked him how he could know if he was a good man or not, the Prophet replied, find out from your neighbors what they think of you. So there's this emphasis in both Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism and Hinduism as well, to be concerned about the emotional and physical needs of the neighbor. And when people do that, when they volunteer to help somebody else out, this is good for their health, for their emotional health, and better emotional health then translates into better physical health and better immune function and protection from infection. Now, When doing that, when loving your neighbor and trying to meet their emotional and physical needs, when possible, do it remotely. We've got the technology right now to do it, so call them on the phone, text them. If they don't have a cell phone, buy them a cell phone and deliver it to them, in a plastic bag or whatever. But do it remotely. We have now the technology to do that. FaceTime, Skype. They're all different ways to do that. And don't be reckless. Wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands. Be very careful when gathering with others and avoid it if possible. Stay in good physical health. That's one thing you have to do during this time of pandemic, which, we're not going to be over this for a while. This is going to be around. And then, what if this virus mutates? Then we'll have something else. We'll be another 9 to 10 months, before we get a vaccine. So it's not going to be over, once we've got a vaccine. So we're going to need to prepare ourselves for the long haul in terms of developing resistance against viral infections. And one way to do that is to stay in good physical health. So this is something very difficult to do, very difficult. Exercise, obtain 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, control your weight, take vitamin D supplements, take vitamin C and E and zinc and probiotics. Those are all good for your physical health. What's especially important is to stay well hydrated. Now, I have developed a concoction that you can drink that will help to protect you from this virus. I came upon it after I had kidney stones about 20 years ago. And because I had the kidney stones, I was told I had to drink more fluids, and it would help if I put some lemon juice in those fluids. So that's what I've been doing over the past 20 years. And I have not had a viral infection in the last 20 years. And if I've had a cold, it's been extremely minor and very, very short. I have not missed a single day of work for over 20 years. And I think part of it has to do with this concoction. So what does this consist of? 1 liter of water plus lemon juice plus airborne tablet. You can get these airborne tablets online. And I do it twice daily. So I'll take about 3/4 of a liter of water and then add about a quarter of lemon juice, concentrated lemon juice, and I'll drink it with a straw, and to avoid contact with the teeth, because it can destroy the enamel on the teeth. So you have to drink the stuff with the straw. And I rinse my mouth out with baking soda as well to get all of the acid off my teeth. And I do that twice a day. And so that's a half a gallon of this fluid, of which about 25% is concentrated lemon juice. So, and I do it in the morning so it doesn't interfere, at night. So I would encourage that. Stay well hydrated, take the lemon juice, which has natural vitamin C in it. And, you do that twice daily, maybe after breakfast or before. I do it before breakfast and before lunch. And then finally, spend time developing your religious faith. It's really the best protection of all, both in this life and the next. So in conclusion, fear and anxiety are common today due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This fear and anxiety weakens the immune system, making us more vulnerable to infection by the virus. All of the religious traditions promise that those who are devout in their practice and in their belief will be protected in one way or another. Religious involvement is related to better mental health, better coping with stress, less anxiety, less fear, and it improves these aspects of mental health over time. Religious involvement is also related to better health behaviors and better physical health, better immune function, and less susceptibility to infection, particularly viral infection. Work on staying safe and healthy during the COVID-19 pandemic, and use your religious faith and practices to protect yourself. But don't be reckless. Don't be reckless. So that's about all that I have to say, and I will be available to answer any questions that you all have. You can send me an email, or otherwise come in contact with me, and I'm happy to answer your questions. My email is harold.koenig@duke.edu. I think I've got that a little clearer here on the. So further resources, I've written this article that summarizes a lot of what I've said in two different journal articles. One, the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry. Older adults, as you know, are at much greater risk than younger adults for this virus. And so it's in particular that older adults need to stay protected and develop their religious faith. And then also I have an article in the Journal of Religion and Health that is longer and more detailed, and it's for free download. You can go to this link here. We have a free e-newsletter that I would encourage everybody to sign up for. We've been reporting the studies on religion and COVID-19 and its relationship with health that have recently come out, and there are a lot of them coming out now, more than the ones that I mentioned in this talk. Go to our website, sign up for it. If you want to do research, and there's great need for research on the role that religion plays in helping to prevent infection with the coronavirus, and in terms of recovery from the coronavirus infection, especially recovery from the virus. What role does religion play in helping to reduce the length that people are having symptoms, the likelihood that they're hospitalized, the likelihood that they're admitted to ICU, the likelihood that they die from the infection, and the likelihood of having long-term physical health consequences? So we have no idea about the role that religion plays in that regard, but it ought to play a role based on everything we know about the relationship between religion and mental health and religion and physical health. We have our summer research workshop. I'd love to see people come to this workshop to develop the research skills to be able to study the relationship between religion and health. So I would welcome you to send me an email if you're interested. And then we've got some scholarships even that might help to reduce the costs. So I would encourage you to do that, to come to the U.S., come to Duke, and come to our 5-day research workshop. Here's our website, and at the bottom of the website, below what I've got here on the slide, is a way to sign up, for our e-newsletter, and it has a lot of free resources on it as well. This website about integrating spirituality into patient care and the role that religion plays in health. So I'm going to end this talk by thanking everyone. I'm also going to stop sharing my screen so that I can actually see everybody. Now, maybe I didn't actually end up sharing it, which I'm afraid I didn't. But you saw me talking, and the PowerPoint slides will be available. On our website in terms of the PDF. And this presentation will also be available on our website if you want to listen to it again. But all of the slides will be up there in a PDF format. And so I would welcome you to come to our website, go to our seminar section, and then, that's where everything is going to be located. So thank you again for listening. God bless everyone, and be sensible. Don't take risks, but develop your faith and love your neighbor. Thank you very much.